A dancer, a teacher, a light. Born in Galishio, Kimberley, David Thatanelo April moved through life as if it were a stage, gracefully, powerfully, living rhythm on every turn. Today, the stage dims. A giant in the South African culture and dance landscape has taken his final bow. April's influence stretched far beyond the theatre. He shaped young artists, led institutions, and transformed contemporary dance in South Africa. One of his former students, Mangaliso Ngwenya, says the lessons David taught went well beyond the studio floor.
David April, who I call Mr. T, was my mentor and still remains my mentor even if he's passed away, because the ways he's taught me, the things he's exposed me to in terms of my artistic career, in terms of my academic career, in terms of how I relate to other people, have been extensively impactful. So I'll always remember him as someone who's a genuine person, someone who is has an impeccable and never-ending willingness to share, a willingness to tap into the best part of whomever he touches in his life, and also a person who was able to make me realize better the form of dance and movement and how to discover it within myself, and how he's also able to facilitate that process for other people was amazing to experience. And I will remember him in those ways and much more ways, because sometimes we talk of someone, but there's so many other things that we'd like to mention. Another thing that I would remember him from is that he always said, move with purpose. Although he made this in relation to dance and movement, I think just moving with purpose in life, moving with purpose with how the people in your life, the people you surround yourself with, it's just moving with purpose always resonates in my head throughout everything that I do. And yes, for the dance sector, I think it would be great for them to continue with what he started, continue with the sense of community, continue supporting each other, because he'd be in every show, and he'd ensure as well that as much as he's at every show watching, he'd document that show, he'd take pictures of the show, and we'd have these beautiful documentations of a show which only he could take in that way. So I think also for the generation of artists who are interested in documentation, take the baton from him, take and learn from the fact that he had so many multifaceted skills that we can learn from. And I think people, not only in dance and movement, so many people can learn from it. So I do think that although he's passed away, it's time to grieve and mourn his death. But there are so many other things that we should not forget, so that when this time passes, this very difficult time passes, we're able to access all these amazing things that he is, all these amazing lessons that he's taught us, and all the possibilities that he could see in us, the potentials that he could see in us.
April was a mentor, he was a friend, a fierce advocate for the arts, and a believer in young talent. CEO of Moving Into Dance and longtime collaborator and friend Nadia Virasamy reflects on the soul behind the movement.
I began working for Moving Into Dance in 2005, which is a good 20 years ago. David was then the executive and artistic director of Moving Into Dance. So I worked very closely with him on trying to establish our accreditation for our learnership. And he was just this fun, vibrant young man at that point, and just bringing so much of energy, creative and otherwise. He was also a little bit naughty, into the dance space. So we had lots of laughs and lots of memories that we shared, but also worked very well together in terms of education. David had the sense of every time he saw somebody, he would go, "Wena?" And I think everybody remembers that about David. So he used to call me N. So every time he'd see me, he'd go, "Wena N," and I used to call him D. So we had this thing going, but it was very cute and very funny. We're so fragmented as an industry that each of us just wants to grow in our own space. And I think the one thing this has taught us is that we need to hold space for each other. We need to check in on each other. We need to share our creativity. And David was very generous with sharing creativity. One of the incredible things about him was his ability to take people under his wings and mentor them unreservedly. And through that, there were so many wonderful dancers and choreographers that have been the product of his mentoring and teaching. And it wasn't just a 9 to 5 thing. He'd go over and beyond. And I think that's what we need to learn, that creativity only grows more when you give off yourself and invest in others, because then you see the growth, you see the development, you see it expand. So I think that's what I take with me. That's what I want the industry to see and know.
Behind the accolades, the global stages, and the visionary choreography, David was family. He adored his nieces and nephews. As we reflect on his life and legacy, his sister-in-law Sandra Wilson shares her heartfelt thoughts and what he meant to her and her family. In a statement, here's what Sandra wrote and shared with us.
Saturday was the hardest day and the saddest day for my family, hearing of David's passing. You meet thousands of people and none of them touch you. And then you meet one that changes everything. He was highly regarded in the arts and culture domain, molding the stage of African dance for decades. But he was a beloved uncle to my children who adored him, and more than a brother to me. I first met David through my sister when he was teaching dance to the primary school children at the very first school she ever worked at. He loved children so much. Tina and David became very good friends for years before becoming romantically involved. But they were in essence soulmates, a term loosely used, but I can attest that in this case it is true. Losing her in 2022 was a monumental loss for David, as Tina was his stabilizing rock. He dedicated his life to uplifting people through dance, people from humble backgrounds who often felt unseen and saw a hopeless future for themselves. He helped them find joy and purpose in their lives. David embodied humility, kindness, generosity, care, warmth and love, and that's how he should be remembered. The outpouring of love from so many, from all over the country as well as abroad, is a measure of who he was. I'm going to miss him so much. Until we meet again, rest in peace, my darling David. Knowing you were loved by so many and will be dearly missed.
The powerful David Thatanelo April leaves behind a legacy etched in movement, memory, and meaning. His feet may no longer touch the stage, but his rhythm lives forever. For SABC News, I'm Lunga Dlamini.